I know this is really messy. It's very messy, but this is what you want to know if you want to grow a brand and go to market and be successful. This is how you want to set your prices. This is how you want to be successful.
You want to say successful again?
5 times. I want to say it 5 times. All right. No. Start out with making an overview of the different kind of like, you are a brand, there's a store, there's a supplier. So if you look here in the beginning, so let's say this is you and this is your brand, right? You develop nice products and you want to now sell these products to someone. You can do that 2 ways. You can do that through a retail store. So you can sell your product through a retail store and then to the end consumer here. You can also, which obviously I would encourage everyone to do, but you can always sell your products directly to an end consumer. Let's see, this guy here has a laptop. So this is obviously online. So you can sell directly here. You got to get your products from somewhere, and that would be your supplier. You can obviously have multiple suppliers, but it's going to be the same for everyone. So let's just put one here. So supplier. So your brand, you get your products from your supplier, you sell them through a retail store to the end consumer or directly to the end consumer through online. So let's define the prices. So here we have the retail price. Retail price. And here we have the wholesale price. So as a brand, you sell wholesale to a retail store, and the retail store sells at retail price to the end consumer. And here, when you buy the products from your supplier, we can call that production price. Some call it raw cost or whatever, but we call it production. Production price. All right. Let's take an example that is kind of easy to relate to. Let's say you did a brand, you want to sell your hoodie at 100 euros. It can also be $100, doesn't really matter in this case. But let's say it's 100 euros. And the 100 euros is including VAT in Europe. So after VAT, ex VAT, that is going to be 80 euros. And if this was in the US, you could just say that this is similar to $80 before sales tax in the store. So the 80 euros here is what we're going to focus on. The end consumer buys the product at 80 euros ex VAT or ex sales tax. So a retail store needs to make 50% or more, but depending on what kind of store it is, but the average is that they make about 50 to 60%. Let's say they make 50%. And they need to make 50% because they have their rent, they have their store personnel, and all these kind of things related to a store. So running a store is kind of expensive, and they therefore need to make 50%. What does that mean for the cost that we sell the product to the store? That means that if they need to sell it for 80, and they need to make 50%, we then have to sell the product for 40 euros to the store. So we have the product, we sell it for 40 euros, and the store sells it for 80 euros. So what does a brand need to make? They kind of have to make the same in terms of percentages. And a standard or a goal that I would say that you should aim for would be to also make 50%. So you make 50% as well. So you suddenly sell products at 40 and you have to make 50% as well. What does that mean? That means that you have to buy the product over here at 20 euros. So 20 euros, you multiply by 2, meaning that you make 50%, becomes 40 euros when you sell to the retail store. The retail store does the same, 50% margin, which means multiply by 2. Sell it for 80, then sales tax or VAT comes on top, and the end consumer pays 100 euros. So that's pretty much how it works. If you are then looking at online, which is obviously what a lot of brands love to do and want to do, which I also obviously encourage you to do, or at least have a mix of these two, is that you then here, when you sell here, you're basically selling directly at retail price. And retail price is these 100 euros, which is actually 80 euros ex VAT. So 80 euros is what you get when you have paid either sales tax or the VAT. So you get 80 euros. And up here you only got 40 euros. So if we look at what you make when you sell either this way, through a retail store and to the end consumer, or this way, through an onliner. So you paid 20 euros for the product, and you sold it here for 40 euros. So if you go this way, you make 20 euros. If you go this way, and you sell directly to an online customer, you got your 80 euros, you paid 20, so you made 60 euros. Sorry about that. Hope you can read it. So obviously you would say, like, why doesn't everyone go this way? Like, why don't everyone just go online? And one of the reasons would be that starting a brand purely online would obviously require you to have a lot of awareness, brand awareness in the market. You can get that through social media, affiliate marketing, influencer marketing, events, whatever. You can do that, like community building. There's a million ways you can do that. And if you can do that and you can do it fairly cheap, this is by far the most profitable channel, the direct to consumer. We can call this D2C, direct to consumer, and we can call this one retail. Or we can call it B2B. Obviously this channel is way more profitable, but as I said, it requires a lot more from your community or engaged customers that will just go to your website or your TikTok store or wherever you're going to sell and buy the product. If you do not have that, you can kind of get that in a way through online marketing. So you can get that through, it could be meta marketing, let's just put that as an example. It could be anything else, like it could be TikTok, it could be whatever. But let's just say it's meta. That would be Instagram and Facebook, right? So obviously from the 60 euros you make here, you have to deduct a meta marketing spend. And that can be quite expensive. It can be quite a lot actually to send ads into the world without knowing exactly who you're ending up targeting and will they buy anything. So these 60 euros might seem like a great deal, but it will cost you money to acquire these customers. Where here, you're not really doing the work in terms of customer acquisition because the products are hanging in the store and the store has people coming in looking at the products, and that does not give you any additional cost, right? So this is kind of like once you sold it into the retail channel, it doesn't give you much more cost. Where down here, you can have marketing spend and you can have a really serious one, which is shipping. Because here you have to ship your products once per order, right? There can be 2 or 3 pieces in an order, and obviously that would require you to ship out a lot of packages. So imagine you're sending one hoodie at 100 euros, you make 80 euros. Through here, you pay 20 to get it, so basically you have 60 left. But what if you have to spend like 15 euros on shipping and 15 euros on meta? Then suddenly it starts becoming closer to this wholesale channel here in terms of profitability. Obviously, there's a lot of other things related to online sales, which is that you own the data, you have first-party data here, you can target the customer again, and you can get them on your newsletter, and therefore your next sale to this online customer is obviously going to be cheaper. So definitely get some online. You can also do the approach which we have done in Call for Standard, is that when you start, you go heavy on retail presence, because you then get a lot of stores to present your brand. And actually I want to show you this that is standing over here. So what we did was that we got this rack into a lot of retailers. And imagine that you don't know about the brand. You go to a store, you see this, you see the logo, you feel the quality. Whoa, this is unbelievable quality. You know, how can I, well, you know, I'll just buy one, I'll get a t-shirt. Let's say this is a customer in Selfridges in London. Let's say the customer is from Italy, buys a t-shirt, goes back home. And then the next order they're going to place is going to be, through the online store. Therefore, I don't have the meta cost. I do have a shipping cost, but I still make a lot more money than I did through my wholesale.
Isn't there also a difference in volume? Right?
Yes. I think, where did I put the pen? Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question in terms of volume, because let's say that you are a brand and you buy from your supplier, let's say twice a year. So let's call these transactions. Transactions. So let's say you as a brand get from here. They basically deliver to you, let's say twice a year. Let's say in the spring and in autumn. So they deliver to you twice a year. It only means that they only send you orders twice a year. You as a brand sells to, let's say, this retail store here. Let's say the retailer, you know, they reorder or replenish from you every month. Let's just say that they every month call you up and say, can I get some more products? So here we actually have 12. This is a 12, sorry that you probably can't read it, but this says 12. So you have now 12 transactions from your brand, or 12 deliveries, to the retail store. But the retail store have a transaction for each end consumer, basically. I know that they can buy 1, 2, 3, 4 products, right? But they will have a transaction for each product, more or less. So let's say that there are 1,000 transactions in a year. That is basically 1,000 kind of end consumers that goes through the store in a year and buys your product. So these 1,000 orders or 1,000 products might have come from the brand in 12 deliveries, so a little less than 100 pieces per order, so say 80 pieces per month you would ship from here to here. And you got them from here in 2 orders, so let's say 500 and 500 in a year. So obviously there's a lot in terms of transactions. And when we're talking about your online store, this is suddenly what happens to you then, because you will be the one then as well having all these transactions and all these orders to ship out. And therefore you have to make more money to pay the meta cost and the shipping cost.
If D2C is so much more profitable, why do the majority of the brands, when they scale up, end up in big retailers, and they end up expanding a lot more in retail rather than in direct to consumer?
Yeah, that is a good question, because it seems easy to go this way. It seems easy just to say, I'm going to make my online store, and then people are going to go to that store and buy products. But in reality, they don't. In reality, they would, when you're a new brand, they wouldn't know about you unless you do something. You got to make some noise somewhere, right? And nobody would know about your quality, right? You wouldn't know that this is a really good fit, or the cotton is amazing, or you know that is just a good product in general. You wouldn't really know that until you start to get familiar with the brand. And for many, it can be a really good approach to get the product into stores through this retail channel. Also because it's way more stable. You get you sell your product and you get your order, and then that's it. There are no more costs related to it, right? So it can be nice to get your product out in a ton of stores, and then people will come see the products there. There's also something about the fact that a retail store when they order your product, most of the time they order it in advance. It can be 3-4 months in advance, 6 months in advance. So they would basically tell you exactly what they would need in 3, 4, 5 months. And that would make you go to the supplier and say, I need this in 3, 4, 5 months. And then you can produce only what you have sold. If you're only going online, you have no idea what you're going to sell. So you're going to predict how much you have to order from your supplier and then take a risk on that. So let's say this retailer buys 1,000 products in a year, and you have 10 of those, 10,000 products, you can go and produce those. But would you take the risk and produce 10,000 products without having sold anything in an online store? Maybe people wouldn't do that as a start. So it can be a good idea to do that. There's also, that is a ongoing discussion everywhere, is like, the more retail you get, will that damage your online sale, and will you then get less online sale if you have a lot of retail? And definitely yes, if you go too far. But on the other hand, if they help in the brand building phase, it might give you more sales online. So there's a sweet spot somewhere in having selected retailers that can help you brand build, that can help you get your product identity, your brand, your products, the whole brand identity into the world and tell the world about your brand. So that can go through retailers, but you have to be careful, because if you go with large onliners, the bigger they get, the more focused they might be on pricing, or the heavier advertisement they will do online. So let's say that you go to a retail store, but it's not a physical store. It's not a brick and mortar store, but it's an online store. It works the same way, because they still need to make their money, but instead they're going to sell to this online customer down here. And they're going to go heavy on discounts online, or they're just going to be better at online than you are. So that means that you might start spending a lot of money on meta advertisement, but actually the end consumer buys it from this onliner up here. So you win only the 20 euros because the end consumer goes like this, but you have all these costs here related to an online business. So you have to watch out with that. So really be selective in terms of how you make your distribution. If you want to build a long-term brand, these retailers up here have to build your brand. They cannot take your margins online. That wouldn't really help.
When you sell your product to retailers, do you have a saying on the pricing structure they can add, or can you only suggest the pricing they should add?
We put here retail price, but it's actually called suggested retail price. And you're not allowed to dictate what price a store should put, which is also why you can't control if a store goes into sales with your product. So let's say you sell this product, 80 euros, they put the VAT. So everyone is agreeing that let's sell this product at 100 euros. Let's imagine the product doesn't move fast enough. The store is like, we need to sell more, or we need to clear it because we don't want the brand anymore, or it's just Christmas or Black Friday or whatever, right? So let's say they lower the price to 60 euros. So they give 40% discount. So suddenly this retailer is selling your product at 60 euros. You still make your money, sure, but you're going to have a very hard time pushing your own product at 100 euros in your online store, because people can just go up here and buy it for 60 euros. So the more stores you have that is lowering prices, the bigger an issue it's going to be for your direct-to-consumer business. And when we are talking about discounts, obviously, as they have this high margin here, 50%, they will still make money at a 30% discount or a 40% discount. So imagine you have someone that knows that they will sell tons of volume through Black Friday at, let's say 30% discount. They actually are still making money, and it can be a profitable deal for them, but it can damage you like crazy unless you kind of follow. And that's why a lot of brands end up following the same. And they're like, if the stores go on sales, we will go on sale in on our online store. So yeah, now that we are talking about this, actually with discounts and stuff, so when the store makes 50%, you make 50%. Actually, a supplier does not make 50%. So imagine that you're buying this at 20 euros from a supplier. They do not produce this at 10 euros. A supplier very often only makes like 20%. So that means that they're actually producing this one at 16 euros. So what happens very often is that in this industry is that if anything goes wrong or you want to push your supplier for better prices or something, it could start out here. It could start like a retailer want to place a really big order. They go to you and say, I need not 50, I need 60%. Then you go back here and say, I also want some discount when I buy the product from the supplier. Then you please be aware that the supplier only has about 20% margin on their products. If you're trying to cut prices here on the supplier, maybe you got a demand from the retailer saying we got to lower prices in general, or give me a better deal. Then if you're trying down here to push 2 euros, so instead of 20 euros, you want to buy at 18 euros. That basically means that the supplier has to sell you the product for 18 euros. But instead of making from 16 to 20, they're now only making from 16 to 18 euros when they sell it to you. So this actually decreases to 10%. So the supplier is now making 10% only, where they were making 20 before. Imagine you do that and you get through somehow doing it, and everyone is kind of like, okay, let's go ahead. How do you think the supplier is then going to feel when some other brand comes and don't push them those 2 euros, and they suddenly make 20% instead of 10%? That means that they're going to make double the amount of money with someone else. Or what if someone comes here and says, I want to pay 22 euros because 22 euros is very little relative to the 100. Then suddenly they're going to make even more money. And this is just an advice. I know that a lot of brands, they like to push the prices with suppliers, but as I am very familiar with the supply side of the business as well, I know how it feels for the suppliers. And once you push them a lot, they are not loyal anymore, and they will be pushed so much that if someone else comes along, they will go with that brand instead of your brand. And imagine also that you wanna call them up and say, can you give me a reorder? I'm selling really well. Can you produce this really fast for me? They're gonna be like, yeah, but I'm only making 10%, right? I have someone else over here that wants to place an order. I'm making 20%, I'm gonna do that one instead. So please remember that those 1, 2, 3, 4 euros down here is a huge difference for the supplier. It might not be that big a deal for you somewhere further in the chain. If we look at what we've done with Call for Standard and why we've been successful from basically day one, is because we supply this really, really good high quality product at a very fair price. And how are we then doing that? Well, we're doing that because we're looking a lot at our wholesale cost to the retailer. So imagine that we lower our margin here to 40% instead of the 50%. So when we buy the product for 20, we sell it to the retail store. We don't sell it for 40, but we sell it a little lower and we make a little less money. So if we lower it to 40% margin, that means that we are going to sell the product at around 33 euros instead of the 40 euros. But what happens here is that we lowered 7 euros, but what happens here is because they still need their 50% margin. But that still makes them then sell the product for 66 euros ex VAT, which is around 80 euros retail. So suddenly, we're still buying the same over here, but just because we lowered our wholesale margin 10% from 50 to 40, means that the end consumer is suddenly getting a difference between 100 euros in the store to 80 euros in the store. I mean, that is a large difference. And then suddenly, I mean, obviously you can keep going like this, and there's a limit at a point because we still have a Call for Standard, even though we do things differently. We don't have seasons. We don't redo everything all the time. We have a more of a lean setup and a design process and a different kind of collection, and we don't switch materials all the time. So we kind of stick with what we're really good at, and therefore we are able to lower the margins a little bit. But the fact that we can do that just has an enormous effect over here, and that is why people suddenly get a high quality product at a lower price. Is that something you should aim to do? Well, it depends. I mean, obviously, the more products you produce, the less you can do in terms of margin, the less money you have to make per product. But also, over here, the higher the volume, then suddenly this supplier here can actually lower their price without losing on their margin. Maybe they can produce it at 15, maybe at 14 euros without losing their margin, just because they produce more products, they order more of the same fabric, they dye more of the products in the same way, and so on. So there is something about, you know, the larger a brand becomes, the cheaper you can actually produce it. But for the majority of brands, and probably the majority of viewers on this channel, your brands either are never going to be that big that you get like insane low prices like Zara or someone. And maybe you don't even want that, because the majority of people that start brands and they do it like from a passion perspective, they don't end up making these kind of huge brands that sell low products at cheap products at low prices. The majority of people and founders that I talk to tend to make these mid-market prices, similar to Call for Standard as well, where you have, you know, there's a lot of passion in it, there's a lot of craftsmanship, you make sure that your quality is high, you deliver a product that you're very proud of to your end consumer, to your community, and that usually tends to be slightly higher in terms of both quality and price. Yeah, but some people like to go low quality, cheap price, and yeah, that will affect supplier cost. What else?
I have a question.
Yes.
It seems like the reason products are expensive is because there is a lot of different stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
So why has no supplier thought, I'm going to produce the product and just sell it to the customer? Let's say that, but let's keep the same numbers that you use there, right? So the supplier produces it for 16 euros and you are selling it for 80 euros and you do it at 80 euros by squeezing your profit. The supplier could sell it for 70 euros, which is lower than you could.
Yes.
And they would make insane margins.
Yes.
Why has no one done it?
It's a very good question, and I think first of all you have to look at in terms of what are the different kind of stages of, or what are the different entities good at, right? So brands are usually really good at brand building, designing, creating identities, building communities, these kind of things. Retail stores might be better at other things, but they might have amazing staff. They might be able to navigate between selling different brands. They're good at creating outfits through combining different brands. They're really good at customer engagement, one-on-one, and so on. There's like a lot of different things that you can be good at. And suppliers are usually really good at supplying or producing products. They know how to get raw material. They know how to make really good products. And if we look down here at transactions, so basically this supplier, even though 1,000 products are being sold here through the online, either online or retail, so 1,000 products are being outputted at the end, the supplier only had 2 transactions because they deliver to the brand twice a year. And that way of running a company means that they don't have to know anything really in terms of brand building. They don't have to have that kind of large commercial department. They don't need to know anything about online marketing or shipping directly to consumers. They don't need to know about one-on-one staff or one-on-one retail experience. So there's a lot of things they don't need to know. So therefore, they just produce their products, put them on pallets, and ship them. That's where they end. And they do a lot of volume, and they can do with a little less margin because it's large quantities relative to their transaction. Once you get to the brand, more transactions. Once you get to the retail store, you could have a store that would then cut this one and go straight here. But what that would mean that they would have to add some kind of commercial department here. They would need to do meta. they would need to do shipping, they would need to do all kinds of things, and they would also have to design the brand, right? They would have to know how does the brand look. So suddenly you're ending up actually getting this one, kind of like down here anyway, because you're gonna have so many costs. And of course, as a supplier, you could decide and say, we want to make our own brand. And sometimes they do, but it is not that common. Also, suppliers can be in different kind of countries, depending on where you produce, but they might be very far away from the end consumer. I mean, suppliers are often placed in countries where the minimum wage is lower, or depending on what kind of brand it is. Some brands produce in Far East, minimum wages are very low, living standards are lower, and they would never be able to pay 100 euros over here for the hoodie. So therefore, if they were doing it and selling in their own country, they would have to lower the price a lot anyway, and margins would be lower. Where brands are usually located in an area closer to their end consumer, and can therefore build community and an end consumer base that is actually able to buy the product at those prices. At Call for Standard, we produce everything in Portugal, which is within the EU, and there's also, of course, very high minimum wages, very high living standards. So our production cost is relatively high, and that is obviously why we have to then lower the margin here to be able to get a lower product, a lower price at the end. Let me remove this again. So I did try to prepare a little bit. So obviously step one was this one, step 2 is this one, and step 3 is this one. There's actually something on this one that I forgot. So there is something in between the brand and the retail store, and we did a video about that before, which is about sales agents, sales meetings, but there can be a sales agent in between the brand and the retail store, and the sales agent would help you enter another market that you might not be familiar with. So imagine that you want to enter France, you're not from France, you don't speak French. You can hook up with an agent that is from France that might know all the stores in France that you don't know anything about. So imagine you have an agent up here, and that agent will then, on behalf of you, go to the retail stores in France and show your collection and get orders. What they take from that would usually be about 15%. And what that means is that you have to take into consideration that if you do this approach, you might get a lot more orders. That's great. It's a market that you didn't have before. But 15% on your 40 euros, because they take 15% of the wholesale price, is 6 euros. So basically they take 6 euros and you then now only make 14 euros. And it means that you lower your margin to 35% from 50.
When a brand is small, there is a very high chance that they pay a lot from suppliers because their orders are small. In that case, would you suggest lowering the margins that you make once you sell? So when a brand sells to retail or direct to consumer, you take a lower margin to be competitive in the market? Or would you have higher prices and then readjust your prices as the brand grows and production becomes cheaper?
I think that's a very good question, because obviously the manufacturing cost has a huge effect on your output over here. And definitely when you start as a brand, it can sometimes be hard to convince a supplier to make your production. Let's say you go to a trade show. We will probably make a video about trade shows, but let's say you go to a trade show, you present your collection, and you sell 100 pieces of a specific hoodie. But the supplier wants you to make 300, and they give you a price for 300. Then maybe you can convince the supplier to make you 100 at a higher cost. So should you then increase your output price over here, your retail price, to account for the fact that this is a higher production cost? Probably not, if you're able to do with lower margins in the beginning, because I think the people that probably watch the video and the kind of brands that would gain from this are brands that I think has to set their price level at a very specific price. Let's say you're doing a streetwear brand and you want to make a hoodie. You cannot just take like 500 euros for a hoodie. And you can also not sell it at only 40 euros because it's not be very credible in terms of your quality and the brand you want to build, right? So if you decide, for example, on these 100 euros, that is the price that you want to make and sell a hoodie for, or not make, but sell a hoodie for, then yes, I would definitely, if you can and if you can afford it, believe enough in the brand to say, okay, I'm going to go with lower margins through here to be able to produce my product and then get it out there at 100 euros. Because sometimes what I see happens is, it's not so great, that someone wants to keep their 100 euros, but they also want to keep the margins and the low prices, so they just say, I'll just borrow money from my aunt or the bank or whatever, and I'm going to produce all 300 hoodies, even though I only sold 100. But what happens is that 200 end up in stock. They don't know what to do with them. They might sell them to a retail store at a discounted price. They might sell them on Black Friday or whatever, or they might never sell them. And you then end up making less money anyway. So you might have been better off with the 100 from the start, and you can iterate on that. You can change the design. And especially when you build a brand, you don't want to have too much of the same inventory. You want to have something like, it would be more fun to have 3 kinds of hoodies that are all 100 each, and they're different, because you cannot sell the same hoodie to the same person again, right? It has to be different. So I would definitely recommend just getting started with low quantities. I do think, though, that it's important to understand that pricing in general isn't always stable, right? So I wouldn't recommend lowering your prices if you can avoid it. I would definitely always, increase them as inflation increases and stuff. That would make things more expensive, and they usually do over time. And you can also, if you build a brand, become more premium. You can increase the price a little bit, and that would help the whole thing here. It can give you more money to do nicer campaigns and stuff. But I will say, when you increase prices, just be careful with how much you increase them, because you have to be sure that your community or your end consumers are willing to pay that extra. And it can be a very hard lesson learned if you, let's say you increase this one from 100 euros to 140 euros, and people are going to be like, I can get other hoodies as well, or more established brands, and they switch to that. Then it's very hard for you to go from 140 and back to 100. So I would definitely try and hit the sweet spot, not too expensive in the beginning. It's better to provide, and I am a true believer of that, and it's what we do in Call for Standard, is that you provide a better quality than what the price actually reflects. So people get surprised, or they get really happy with the product, right? So if people feel that the product gave them additional value relative to other brands, they will come back. So I would always tend to be a little lower in price than you kind of maybe could be, just to make sure that everyone is like happy as you grow. And you don't want to get into sales too much, right? I also think it's important to just touch on sales in a little bit, and that is that there's nothing wrong necessarily with doing sales. You got a clear inventory or something, but I would suggest that you follow the regular sales kind of periods, because you don't really want to be on sale all the time. And obviously scarcity is an interesting thing when you build brand. So even though you have to go on sale sometimes, it can be better that you stick to whether that's a Black Friday or a Christmas sale or something. But you don't have those situations where, let's say you produce 300 hoodies, but you only need 100. Then don't put the other 200 on sale all the time, because it's going to devaluate the brand. You want to have these kind of like peaks when you're like, okay, now I can do a sale, and then back to stability, back to my 100 euros, which is my regular price. Don't teach your end consumer that you always have a hoodie at 80. It's going to devaluate the brand. You have anything else, Luca?
No, that's it.
Because I don't know if it was, It's always, when you're standing next to a whiteboard, you always feel like it makes a lot of sense. When you step 3 feet back, it's like, what the hell was that? But I hope it made sense. I hope that everyone got a little more idea about, like a better idea about how to set your prices. Yeah, if there are any more questions, just please let me know. Like, subscribe, put a comment, anything that can just help grow this channel and get this kind of content better and get it out there. So yeah, let me know if you have any suggestions, anything, and I will try and address it. Thank you so much for watching.